Welcome to the stretching sequence. We'll get right down to business, and we're going to start with 3 stretches that actually occur right on the mat. We'll do these 3 lying stretch sequences, each on the right and then on the left, and then we'll bring it up for a lunge stretch at the wall and one more in a standing lunge stretch. Let's go. The very first stretch is called the figure 4 or the number 4 stretch. You're going to begin by placing one ankle all the way on the outside of the knee, and it is important that your ankle bone, actually the malleus that sticks out there on either side, is actually all the way across the leg. So if you're a little tight and this is where you land, you want to work and see if you can get that all the way on the other side. If you feel a stretch here, this is fine. Otherwise, I want you to come as close as you can, weave your hands through and hold on to this leg. Now, for some reason right here, you're very tight through the neck and you find that your head is either way back and your neck is opened up, or that you need to hold your head in a lifted position. I'd like you to think about getting a pillow to support your back. We're going to hold this stretch here, and I want you to draw this in, holding it for about 30 seconds to a minute. Just an easy stretch, drawing the leg in. As you're holding that, I want you to also passively, you're pressing the knee away, not with your hand, but you're actively pushing it with the knee pushing out, and that's going to create a great stretch around your hip joint. If you're very able to grasp the thigh and you want to reach further around to the shin, please do so now. And if you find that this is still really easy, that you're very loose and you can reach up and under, I want you to hold on just above the ankle. Try not to tug on the foot and put stress on the ankle joint, but hold on here. It's kind of like the tongs on a fork, pulling toward you, and still again holding, flex that foot, and still pressing the knee away from you so you're feeling a little bit more intense stretch right through the hip. Take deep breaths while you're holding your stretches. Exhaling and release it. And along with your breath, think of letting the muscles release with you. Keeping some tension by just gradually pulling your leg towards you slightly more. And then very gently relax, release, and we'll perform that number 4 stretch on the other side. The ankle crosses over, drop the knee to the side, live with that for a few seconds. If you're feeling a great stretch right here, maintain that and hold it. If you're ready to go further, weave through and underneath and hold on to the thigh, gently pushing this knee actively away. And that may not be a movement that you can see on the camera, may not be a movement that anyone else would know that you're doing, but it will create a little greater stretch through your piriformis, and that is a deep hip muscle that also will affect your lower back. Flex your foot if you can, both feet, in fact. And again, reaching through and on the outside of the shin is an option, and reaching up and under is another option. You may find that you can hold on the shin or on the thigh on one side, but yet you can get all the way up and around and hold on the shin in this fork-like pattern on another leg. And that's perfectly natural, perfectly normal that you're not the same on both sides. Keep yourself lifted and flexed. And this is one spot where if you have the wall close by and it's more comfortable for you to get that foot up on the wall or on an exercise ball, my heel would be resting right now so that I could draw that in if I were straining through the head and neck to lift up and pick the leg up and bring it to me. That'd be a way to prevent any neck strain while I'm doing the exercise. Take a deep breath in and exhale, breathe out. And relax the leg. Go ahead and place both feet back down on the floor. In the second exercise, the arms come wide to the side. Think about pulling your shoulder blades down against the floor and literally kiss your shoulder blades to the floor as if you're giving it a hug. You're going to take one leg up and over, and this is called the cross-legged stretch. So literally you're crossing your legs. You're going to lift your hips up just ever so slightly and move them over to the side of your top leg. My left leg is crossed. I'm going to move my hips to the left side, and then I'm going to allow my legs to continue to fall over. So that little hip lift just bought you a little more range of motion on that side. And I'm letting gravity pull the legs down. So don't force the stretch. These are all passive, meaning you're not actively pushing or pulling on the muscles. You're letting gravity do all the work. But I would like you to think about trying to keep this opposite shoulder blade down on the ground, and you'll find most likely that's easier on one side than it is on the other. Take a deep breath in and exhale, and as you exhale, draw your shoulder blades back down and into the floor. There's no right or wrong answer about where you feel the stretch, but you may feel it down through the leg, you may feel it in your hip, along your entire side waist, or even across the front of the chest and the shoulder here, or all of the above are also good answers. If you do have a good stretch, be careful when you come out of that stretch to carefully draw yourself up and out. Come back into good alignment and just prepare the other side. The leg first crosses up and over. Put your weight on that foot, hip lift, and set your hips just a couple inches over to the side of your top leg, and then allow your legs to fall over to the side, keeping this opposite shoulder blade down on the mat as best you can. Now you may find that your legs don't go nearly as low on one side as they did on the other, or you're simply feeling a much greater stretch on one side than you did on the other. Remember, those are just things for you to pay attention to, following up with one side being tighter than the other, and that also might change on a day-to-day basis depending on your activities. Had you played a round of golf today, that would have probably changed which side was tight for you. Deep breath in, and exhale. Shoulder blades come back into the mat and draw them down nice and snug. Relax the tension in your legs as much as you can. Just let go and give in. Let gravity do all the work. And then slowly, remember, you want to unwind somewhat. Bring yourself back up. Square your feet on the mat. And this time you're going to take your feet about mat width apart. So if you're not using a mat, that's about 2.5 feet. So let your legs go wider to the side, and then we're going to let them both fall more like windshield wipers. So this is wide legs falling to the side. Drop them over, and then just kind of live with that for a few seconds. Now, on this one again, shoulder blades are down. You may feel a stretch more across the front of the hip. If you're very flexible or very loose on this side, you may not feel a great stretch at all. If you're feeling like this is fine and I could tolerate more, I want you to take your heel of that forward leg, for me it's my right leg, and place it on my left knee, and then I'll just let that come down. That heel on the knee acts like a little bit more leverage, so that gives you a little bit greater stretch and changes it. And you might notice that internally through the inner thighs. You might notice it more outside or still along that side waist. And there's not, again, a wrong answer. You'll feel the stretches where you need the stretches the most. Take one more deep breath in on this side. And then gently take that top leg off and bring yourself back up. Realign the legs. Mat width apart. Allow your legs both to simply fall to the side first, and then tune in to the feelings that you have going on in the hip now. If you have a great stretch, you really feel like this is good and it's enough on this side, stay here. If you feel you can go a little further, you're going to pick up the top heel, place it on the knee, and then just let the knee fall out and drop down. So you've got some natural leverage right here. So my stretch happens to be just more across the front of the hip, just into the side hip. Yours could be inner thighs on either leg, across the back, even across the chest still. And take a deep breath in. Exhale out. Carefully taking that top ankle off. Reposition your legs, proper alignment, and always when you're taking care of your lower back, even if you're not in a time of back pain, you want to make sure when you roll up from a lying position, our tendency a lot of times is to just toss things up and come up the center, which puts a lot of stress on the neck, on the core, on the lower back. The best way to come up is to actually take everything to the side and then gently sit up in a pressing position using the legs for support and using the arms for a press. So I'm actually on a yoga mat on a hardwood floor. So I will tell you, just as a tip, I'm going to actually roll my mat up so I've got a little bit more cushion under my knees. And the other thing I'm going to do is remove my shoes. So on this one, depending on your range of motion and depending on the soles of your shoe and the marks you want on your wall, you may opt to remove your footwear in order to do this one well. So this is all about releasing the muscles in your hip flexors. I'm going to take one foot and place it up the wall. So removing my shoes also helps me get that mobility around my ankle joint. Now, depending on how loose you are or how tight, I can either bring my knee further away from the wall for lesser of a stretch, or I can keep it close to the wall for a greater stretch. So now I've been doing this stretch for quite some time. I do have to get artistic with my microphone wire, so I will apologize for that now. But I'm going to place the other leg out in front. So I've got a tabletop with a knee right over my ankle. And I'm going to first position myself so I'm simply in a long lunge. Now there's a couple things you should watch for as you're looking at me, so you know to watch for them in yourself or feel for them when you're doing this yourself. So I can actually be here but backed up so much that I've got a good crease at my hip and I'm not actually feeling a stretch right there. But if I lengthen forward and lengthen this joint out here so I'm not so bent, I'm actually feeling a pretty good stretch right here at my hip flexor in my upper thigh. So I want to lengthen and also feel like I'm stretching my sternum or the top of my chest away from my tailbone, and that increases the stretch quite a bit. And I can tell you I'm not uncomfortable, but I'm just short of it. So as you're here, find that spot and get comfortable, because this is one of the stretches that we're going to take a minute in here, and then we do one more minute on this same side in a more elevated position, making the stretch a little bit more intense. So try to breathe through this, not pushing into the stretch, but just breathing through, holding the same spot, trying to let the muscles relax and let go. And at this point, very carefully, I'd like to use the knee for support, come up to a more lifted position, and again, the tip I gave you before, I can be here but not actually feeling a great stretch unless I think about tipping my tailbone down and forward as if I were going to point it forward on a spot on the floor. And that increases the stretch right here through the hip flexors. And in our modern day lives, we sit so much at work, at our desk, at home again when we're relaxing, in our cars and our commutes, and traveling even more for leisure or for work than we ever have before. That our hip flexors are so much at 90 degrees that they get shortened to that length, and it pulls on the hip and on the lower back, therefore, in a way that's not conducive to good back health. So opening this up may immediately provide some relief for you through the lower back. It also will provide a great stretch that I don't need to tell you about if you're doing this at home right now. And once you've performed your minute on this side, come easily out of that stretch and relax. Coming down, reposition so you've got the other side coming up. So knee just about the same distance away from the wall. Other leg comes out. And then position yourself with a good extension forward. So I'm drawing my shoulder blades down, taking my sternum forward, and reaching forward and into my hip. And you may not be able to see the difference here, but I have a drastic difference from one side to the other. And I don't suffer from back pain right now. I've been doing okay for a long period of time, but I have a right hip and a left hip that are not symmetrical myself. My left hip was much tighter. My right hip, I can enjoy the stretch actually a little bit more and feel the release and enjoy the stretch. I wasn't exactly enjoying the left side. I do have clients I work with who will tell me they can't put their knee on a hard surface like this or put weight on a hard surface. So I would suggest to you to try to accomplish this stretch in a standing position, and I'll show you that next, a standing option that may work better for you. Keep lengthening out. Remind yourself every so often as you start to relax to draw the chest forward again, to keep the stretch actively happening, not pushing, but still feeling as if you're doing some good and opening the length of that muscle. And then very carefully come back up, lift up, and once you're tall, notice my hands are here just for a slight support, so I'm not really putting weight here, but I'm actually up and off of them. And in fact, if I can come up without pressure here, I could reach my hands back to the wall, just further opening up the front of the body, tipping my tailbone down and slightly forward. So I'm going to feel a much greater stretch here through the front of my hip in that hip flexor muscle. Lengthening up. And I'll take that one step further on this side. So as I have my right leg down and I'm stretching my right hip flexor, I can also take that right arm up in a lifted position, still reaching down, but also now reaching up to give me a great front of body stretch throughout that right side. Take a deep breath in. Exhale out. Enjoy the stretch and relax your shoulders. And then carefully bring that hand down and ease yourself out of this stretch and put your shoes on, and I'll meet you standing on the mat. In the last of our 5 stretches, we're going to position ourselves so that we've got a wide stance on our mat in a standing position, a long lunge to the back. Lunging means that your back heel actually should be up. You have a slight bend of your back knee, and you have a definite bend in your front knee and at your hip. Hands on your hips or hand on a wall or chair or couch for balance would be great. I want you to think about bringing your back knee down and then staying down and reaching that back knee back behind you. So you're going to tap and reach back, but there should not be a lot of up and down action in my body. If I'm doing this correctly, I'm feeling a great stretch through my hip flexor as I reach my tailbone forward and reach that heel to the back. 3 times on either side, and then go ahead and come up and then switch sides. So carefully, Reposition, nice wide stance, and I am dancing with our microphone cord here. Reach back, tip the hip forward, bring the back knee down, and then try to stay down as you reach that heel and that knee behind you. Come down and touch, and then reach back and really enjoy that hip flexor stretch. And because this one is quite intense, we'll just hold that 3 times and then come up. And you've done your stretch sequence for today.